Hi, this is Russ Andersson. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at geometric hierarchy tracking, and here we're going to create an actual hierarchy. So this is a more advanced tutorial. I advise you to look at some of the other tutorials first before you get to this one. So the shot here has this pizza box, and the basic hierarchy that we've got is the base of the box, this side piece, and the top. And our hierarchy is going to reflect that, and they're all going to be tracked together as a unit. So we're going to start out by bringing in a mesh that I've made previously that corresponds at least a little bit to the particular pizza box. And you'll notice we're not seeing the inside. So let's flip over and we're going to turn on our backface display. And it's also convenient for this kind of tracking to work in wireframe mode, so I hit the / key to switch to wireframe mode, and there's a right-click menu operation for that also, for that matter. So that's just a little middle mouse scrolling in, dialing in a little bit on this. So here's our model, and let's do one other thing here. We're going to just pull off the normals. That gives us a somewhat better display of the inside of the box. And now we are ready to start creating our rig that tells SynthEyes how this particular box is going to move. So to do that, we're going to go to this toolbar, and toolbars in SynthEyes you can always get to from the right-click menu also. You can move them around. So we're going to go to this create mode. We're going to take our mesh. We're going to hold down shift, because all of these first couple of modes use the shift key when you want to create a new object. And we've created a new pivot, and once I've started doing that, I'm going to let go of the shift, and that's going to let it drop onto the surface, which is where I want to have this pivot sitting, and it doesn't really matter exactly where it is. So I'll just move around a little. You can see it's sitting on the surface of the box. Now we need to be a little more careful about what we do with the next ones. So now we're going to switch to a surface mode, and we've got in our little mini hierarchy view, we've got our object that we just created. It's already selected. So when I create a new additional object, it's going to be parented to the one that's already there. So if you want something that's not parented, just don't have anything selected. So again, I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to start dragging right around this thing. And as I start picking up vertices, you'll see that it's getting selected, and I've got a new pivot there. And now I'm just going to let go of the mouse button. And you see I've got my new object. And you notice that some of these aren't selected because they were blocked behind the existing surface. So now I can just go and lasso some more to bring these guys in. They're just getting added to the set of vertices for this. We'll just make sure we've got anything. And by the way, I could have used the through lasso, which would have selected all these things easily, but then the pivot point would have been up in the air, not on the surface. And in this case, having it sitting on the surface is a bit more useful. So what we're going to do next is adjust this pivot position by dragging it by that handle over to the right. Again, I'm just using the scroll wheel to move in a little bit. And the idea here is just to line it up with that last line of vertices, because that's where the hinge point is in the box. So now I've got that second child object. You can see it over here. It's selected. There's the original guy in the hierarchy. Now we're ready to do the same thing again. I'm just using the middle mouse to pan. And we're going to do the same thing. We'll turn off edit pivots for now. And just going to drag around here. I could use a rectangle select also, but then I need to line up the object a little better to start with. So now I've got my new guy set up. And let's just change the color. I'm going to click that swatch over there. I'll just make him green so you can see a little better what we've got. So I just need to make sure that I get all of these vertices to be part of this additional object. Oops, still missed one there. So there we have our second object sitting there. Now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to go and move that pivot point over to line up with the fold in the box. And there we have it. So now I've got this basic hierarchy set up, 3 different objects. I can go and click through them. You'll see that as I click each one, its collection of vertices lights up in red. And you notice the second one includes all of the vertices over here that are a part of the third one also. And that's the key point, because when I move the second one, I'm going to want everything else to move there also. And then the third one just has the smaller subset of that are the ones associated just with the third object. And of course, if I unselect, I get all the different pieces. Let's just change that last one back. So now we have 3 different colors. You can build up your nice color-coded little setup there. So now we can start looking at the motion. So the base object here, the part that we're holding, basically the whole thing, we want that to be able to move around completely in 3 dimensions, all 3 orientations. So we're going to go and unlock all 6 of the joint axes. So when that button is lit up blue, that means that that joint value is locked to the spinner that's next to it. But when it's unlocked, it is free to be calculated by SynthEyes as part of the tracking process. As it turns out, this first frame is actually a key frame. It's going to be used as a reference for the rest of the tracking. So this key guy is essentially going to make sure that we're going to use these values anyway. So, if I change any of these values around, the thing moves around. Oops, didn't want to do that. So now let's move on to the next object. Here's our second one. And here we want to have just a rotation. So if I play around with the different rotation angles, you'll see that the pan angle is the one that we want. That's the one that lets the box fold up properly. So we're going to unlock just that pan angle. All these other values, the 2 angles and the 3 positions, are going to stay exactly where they are, so that the box can only bend along that one axis, just like it does in reality. And the fact that you can lock up some of these joints and leave others to be calculated is what makes the hierarchy so powerful, and lets it track the whole thing as a unit rather than as a couple of different individual pieces. And I'll point out that these lock buttons are all animated sorts of buttons, so that you can have them locked in part of the shot, unlocked in others, and so on. So that's that object. Now we'll move on to the third one. And of course, it's the same story. And we'll unlock that pan angle also. So at this point, really, we have the basic rigged setup. And we could save this setup away for use in multiple shots at this point. This hierarchy here says how the box is going to move, and we could import it and merge it into different shots however we like. Now we're going to go ahead and, well, in this case, we're going to need to do one other thing, which is we want the solve, in this case, the solve to all affect each other, so that the position at the top of the box is going to help determine where the bottom of the box is. And the same for the hinge. The position of the hinge is going to affect the main. Basically, we're going to solve them all together as a unit. And that's useful in this particular case because we don't get that much information from the bottom part of the box. Is really the only part that you see. But you get a lot more information when you have the second box, the second part, and the top box, because they can only move the certain set of ways as defined by this pan angle. So the upshot of this is that we're going to turn on this effect parent box, and we're going to do that for the third object, and we're going to do it for the second one too. And that's going to make sure that when we track, we're going to do the tracking of all three of them simultaneously. If we had some really complicated object as the basic object and we had really solid tracks on that in the first place, and we're just doing a simple limited secondary track for something, then we wouldn't be using this effect parent. But in this particular shot, we do want to do that. Again, like the locks here, the effect parent is an animated sort of thing, so that if you get to some portion of the shot, say, and the entire top of the box is invisible, I can just turn off that effect parent, and that way it wouldn't be trying to track the top of the box that might be not visible at all, and have that mess up the bottom part. Okay, so now's the part that we can save away. And now we're ready to start going back to our actual shot. And what we want to do is line up our rigged mesh, our rigged box, with the existing box, the visible box in the scene. So it's a good idea and makes it easier to do it if you get some sort of general alignment between the two before you start the pinning process. We're going to be using a little toolbar to do that. But just before we do that, we're just going to go and move the box around a little bit. And here I'm going to hold down the control key to do rotations. We'll just drag it around a little bit. And the point of this is really just to be able to expose really the sides that we're going to be wanting to match up with what we can see. And also, it prevents SynthEyes from possibly picking some alternate solution that's maybe flipped 180 degrees the other way or something. So if they match up pretty much in the first place, there's less odds for that happening. So with that preliminary orientation, we're ready to start pinning. One other thing to point out on this, when you do the pinning, when you do this kind of preliminary setup, you want to be sure that it's the object itself that you're selected and moving, not the box. If you start moving around the box independently of the object, you're going to get the two out of alignment, and things aren't going to go well after that for you. So you want to be moving around the whole rig, that baseline object, root object, once you've got the rig built up. So we're going to go into the create and edit pins mode. We're going to just be able to go and start grabbing some spot on the mesh and moving it into position. See, one other thing over here, we've got field of view is fixed. We're going to click that and change it to field of view changes, so that as we do this, it's going to be calculating a new field of view as well. Now I'm going to just go and do a zoom in here. Now I'm holding control down as I do this, so that I snap to the vertices themselves. Likewise, this one itself I didn't put right on a vertex, but I can just do a little slide to it. Well, maybe there anyway. I can also go and delete them and replace them. However, the delete there was just holding down control and left clicking it. So once I've got a couple there, let's go up to the top, and we're going to start moving additional ones into position. And this does involve a bunch of zooming in and positioning. And what you'll find is that as you get more and more of them, there's going to be some larger discrepancies between where everything really lines up. Here you see that my corner one up there is really a bit higher maybe than my box is. And that, just reflects the fact that my box model isn't really quite the best model. So you can drag these things around, and as you change things in one spot to try and make things line up as best can be and in a way that makes the most sense, you'll see that you do get some errors where the horizontal and vertical hashes are out of alignment, and that's just a feedback for you as to what's where. And in this case, really what we want to get right are the bottom parts. And you notice we are playing a little bit of whack-a-mole here. So you can go nuts, and the bottom line is if the mesh doesn't really match up that well, you're not going to be able to make it fit super exactly. So it's really just a matter of getting something that's reasonable and you think is the best match to between your model and what you've got. And once you've done that, you can go and click the null out all errors button, which just goes and it centers these guys back up by recalculating their positions in the image based on where the object actually is. And if you're adjusting for a while and they're all out of whack and you're trying to drag things around, you can just hit that null out the errors and then proceed on and adjust things some more. So it's just kind of a little handy thing. So now we've got this base object set up right, and we want to go and work on the bottom, the additional child objects as well. So we're really done with the pinning mode here. We can just close that up. You'll notice it's calculated the field of view of the shot based on this match. And that is a key point for the geometric hierarchy tracking, that you do need to have a good field of view value. So what we're going to do the rest of the alignment is just change these values to make it line up. And notice here there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. That's just what I'm trying to do, is get the angle to match up between the mesh and the box. We'll just check down at the bottom again, and you can see it, it matches up reasonably. But you can see there's a bunch of other parts of the box that really aren't in my model at all. But once we've done that one, then we can go and work our way out. And now we've lined up the third object. Again, you'll see that it's not a super exact match. And the better the match between your model and what's actually happening in the world, the better the tracking data is going to be that you ultimately wind up with. Not only is it going to be more accurate, it's going to have less glitchiness sorts of problems possibly as well. So you do want to have a model that's a reasonably good representation of what you've got. So now I've got this thing matched up, and we are ready to do the actual tracking. And to do that, I'm just going to hit the play. And you see it works its way through the shot, and it's animating both the base of the shot of the box as well as these two moving parts, and making everything hang together exactly. Now, of course, there are various fun things that can happen in the middle, and all these crazy actors and stuff. And there are things that you can do to play with these tracks that are described in the manual some, and probably I'll work up some additional tutorials. This is just our basic sort of thing. You can see there's actually some issues there at the bottom due to my hand moving around. We could actually mask out that part of the box if we wanted. So we can go and look at this in the graph editor. Here are the different joint values. See, there are some wraparound things. Like in a lot of SynthEyes here, it's not really computing any specific joint angles necessarily. The whole idea of history is kind of an alien one. But there's a little glitch there. The really cheesy way to go and fix that is just to go like this. Well, let's see. Ah, that's in the other one, that's why. So it looks like there's still a little. Let's turn that off. There. Once we separate it out, you can go and play around with the super crass technique. But the other sort of thing that you can do is actually set additional keys. This is sitting somewhere down here. And a lot of what you see is when the lighting changes on the object, you need to set a new reference pattern. And you're able to do that by clicking this key button, and that way that image will be used for subsequent parts of the tracking. So this is your initial introduction to hierarchy tracking. Hopefully you see that this is really a very, very flexible and powerful sort of technique. And it's able to do a great job of pulling information out of the scene when there are different kinds of relationships among the different objects in the scene. So hope you've enjoyed and hope this has been educational for you. Thanks.